What's up, Ice Nation? I hope you all are doing well today. Today I'm going to talk about how to defeat Arlo in Pokemon Go. So the Team Go Rocket Leaders just had a change up as of March of 2023 and they got new Pokemon. And so I'll be talking about the counters that Arlo uses, and I'll give you some ideas of what to use so you can defeat him. And then I will give you my recommendation for a team as well as the team that I used. So that way hopefully you can defeat Arlo and get your Shadow Shiny Teddy Bear. A couple things I would like to mention before we jump into the counters. Since there are so many Pokemon, these counters are ones that will be the majority of what people use, whether because it's the best of their typing, it's just good matchups, or they are more accessible to people. If you don't have any of these Pokemon that I mentioned, don't worry. All you have to do is just go to your Pokemon storage and then in the search bar, type in the type that you're looking for, and then you can use your best one. So now with that out of the way, let's get started. Arlo's first Pokemon will be Teddiursa, and this is the Pokemon that you will receive once you defeat him and you have the opportunity to catch. It can be shiny, and its shiny rate is 1 in 64. Teddiursa is a normal type, and so that means he's going to be weak to fighting types. So some of his counters are Terrakion with Double Kick and Sacred Sword, Lucario with counter and Aura Sphere, Conkeldurr with counter and Dynamic Punch, and then you could also use a Tyranitar with Smackdown and Stone Edge. Now the Sacred Sword on Terrakion is an exclusive move, so if you don't have this one, you will need to use an Elite TM, or you can take and just use a different fighting type move, or altogether you can use a different fighting type Pokemon. The Tyranitar, while Teddiursa is not weak against him because he's a dark and a rock type, if you choose to use him for some of the other counters, you can use him here, so that way you can build up some energy for later on in the fight. Arlo's second Pokemon will be a Hypno, Golurk, or a Blaziken. So for Hypno is a psychic type Pokemon, and it is weak to Bug, Dark, and Ghost. So some of the dark types that you can use are Hydreigon with Bite and Brutal Swing, Bisharp with Snarl and Dark Pulse, Tyranitar with Bite and Crunch, and then Houndoom with Snarl and Crunch. Now the Brutal Swing on Hydreigon is an exclusive move, so you will have to take and use an Elite TM for that, or just use a different dark type move altogether. Another option Arlo can have as the second Pokemon is Golurk, and Golurk is a ground and a ghost type Pokemon, so he's going to be weak to dark, ghost, grass, ice, and water. Some counters for Golurk that you could use would be Dragonite with Dragon Breath and Dragon Claw. For whatever reason, Dragonite works really well here, and a lot of people like using Dragonite against him, so that's always an option. You can also use any grass type, like Torterra with Razor Leaf and Frenzy Plant. Frenzy Plant is an exclusive move, so you'll have to use an Elite Charge TM on him, or just use a different grass type Pokemon. You can also use Tyranitar with Bite and Crunch, and then Swampert with Water Gun and Hydro Cannon. And then again, Hydro Cannon is a legacy move, so you'll have to use an Elite TM on it, or just use a different water type Pokemon. The last Pokemon Arlo can use for his second Pokemon is Blaziken, and Blaziken is a fire and a fighting type Pokemon. It is weak to flying, ground, psychic, and water. The best options for Blaziken are using water type, so any water type would work. You can use a Swampert with Water Gun and Hydro Cannon, Blastoise with Water Gun and Hydro Cannon, and then a Kyogre with Waterfall and Origin Pulse. All of the second moves, so Hydro Cannon and Origin Pulse, are exclusive moves for these Pokemon, and so you'll have to use an Elite TM to get them, or you can just take and switch over the second move. All three of these guys get Surf, and that works just as well. So if you don't have any of the exclusive moves on these Pokemon, it will be fine. Arlo's third Pokemon can be one of three: Scizor, Banette, or Luxray. Scizor is a bug and a steel type Pokemon, and so that means he's going to be double weak to fire, and I would recommend using a fire here. So you can use pretty much any fire type Pokemon. You can use a Heatran with Fire Spin and Flamethrower. You can use a Charizard with Fire Spin and Blast Burn, Infernape with Fire Spin and Flamethrower, and Chandelure with Fire Spin and Flame Charge. The Blast Burn on the Charizard will be an exclusive move, so you have to use an Elite TM for that, or you can just take and use a regular charge move to get Flamethrower. That works just as well, but any fire type here will work. really good. Another option Arlo can use for his third Pokemon is Banette, and Banette is a ghost type Pokemon. It is weak to dark and ghost types. So here I would recommend using a dark type. You can use Hydreigon with Bite and Brutal Swing, Bisharp with Snarl and Dark Pulse, Tyranitar with Bite and Crunch, and then Houndoom with Snarl and Crunch. The Brutal Swing on the Hydreigon will be an exclusive move, so you'll need to get an Elite Charge TM to get that move, or you can just take and use a different type dark move. The last Pokemon Arlo can use as his third Pokemon is Luxray, and Luxray is an electric type, and so that means it's weak to ground. So for ground types, you can use Excadrill with Mudslap and Drill Run, Garchomp with Mudshot and Earth Power, Mamoswine with Mudslap and Bulldoze, and then Swampert with Mudshot and Earthquake. The Earth Power on the Garchomp is going to be an exclusive move, and so you'll need to take and use an Elite TM to take and get that move, or you can just use a different Earth type move. He gets Earthquake, and that works pretty decent. So Arlo is a bit of a wild card. It's going to depend greatly on what he uses, so all you have to do is take and remember the second and the third Pokemon that he uses, and then you can adjust your team accordingly. You will not use your Rocket Radar up until you defeat him, so you can go in and rebattle him as many times as you want. Now, I would recommend a dark and a fire type for sure, and then your third type, you could use either a ground or a water type. It just, like I said, it's just gonna greatly depend on what he uses, and then you'll just have to switch accordingly. The team that I use to defeat Arlo is Tyranitar with Smackdown, Stone Edge, and Crunch, Lucario with Counter, Aurasphere, and Shadow Ball, and then Reshiram with Fire Fang and Fusion Flare. I use Tyranitar because he's easily able to take and defeat Teddiursa, and then you can also take and build up some charge with him. He's also good for Hypno, Golurk, and Banette since they are weak to dark types. Lucario, he's good for Teddiursa because he's weak to fighting type, and then the Shadow Ball is also good against Hypno, Golurk, and Bayna if you run into those, since they are both weak to dark and ghost types. Tyranitar and Lucario are really good for those. And then lastly, I just used a Reshiram as my third type. I lucked out and got a Scizor on my first try, and so that was really good there. If I wouldn't have gotten a Scizor, then I would have used a ground type, such as Garchomp or Mamoswine. So I hope this guide helped you. Hit the like button if you found it helpful. If you want to, take and put the team that you used to defeat Arlo in the comments below. Have a good one, and we will see you in the next one. Stay frosty.